Hi, I'm Pamela, and usually I'm in longevity gardens, but this is not going to be a gardening talk. So if you guys are here for gardening or anything like that, you can click off. This is going to be completely different topic than I've ever talked about before to almost anybody. This is something that has been very personal to me, and very few people know about it. But I've come to realize that there's not a lot of information out there about this. And I'm talking about being a second waver. Um, there's three waves, and I'm a second waver. And there's just not a lot of information out there about it. So I do have this YouTube channel, and I don't really have anywhere else that I can post this talk. So yeah, it's got nothing to do with gardening or longevity gardens. I might talk a little bit about my past relationship. Some of you might be here for that, but I'm not really going to go into depth about it. So this is something very unusual, and some of you might not, be understanding of it or know what I'm talking about. And if you start to get really kind of confused, this video just might not be for you. So I'm not sure how to start this. I want to maybe start it explain it to you the way it came to be for me. So about a year and a half ago, maybe, I went through a lot of changes. This is after my divorce, and when you do a lot of soul searching, you try to figure yourself out, and I learned a lot of stuff, and I went back, and it all just makes sense. When you have like an epiphany, like not just an aha moment, but an explosion, oh my God, yes moment, and it changes your life. Like that happened to me. And it all started with finding out that I'm an empath. Now, I'm going to be going through a lot of topics here, and I'm going to try and navigate you guys through all these topics and all this content. So this video is going to be very long, and I'm going to try to explain it and convey it in a way where I don't lose you all. So bear with me. So my whole life I have been very, not emotional, but I've been very sensitive to, and just with all emotions my whole life. And after, and what happens to a lot of people when they find out that they're empaths, usually something traumatic happens. Like there was a death in the family, you go through a major breakup, something like that, something like a near-death experience, like something huge has to happen to you. Otherwise, you might never find out about it if you don't really get to the information that can really bring you home with a lot of this stuff. But my whole life I knew I was sensitive. I didn't know what was going on. I just thought that I was hormonal as a teenager, or that I could always kind of sense things that I had no reason to sense them from people. And you kind of learn to brush it off your whole life, or I did, because every time I would talk to someone about it when I was young, they couldn't relate. So I just had to kind of stop. And what that sensitivity was, I could just sense everybody's emotions. And I found out that is actually being an empath. And I had heard the term empath before, but I thought it was someone who was just empathetic. Like when someone's sad and you're comforting them, and all of a sudden you feel sad because you're comforting. That's being empathetic. That's not what an empath is. An empath is someone who can sense, basically, and this sounds strange, the emotions and the feelings of all of humanity. Doesn't matter what that emotion is. So it could be happy or sad or angry or anxiety or depression, or it could be anything. That if you're around an environment or know someone, or you don't even have to be interacting directly with that person, but you can take on the emotions of everyone as if they're your own. And looking back, I've had this my whole life. I couldn't figure out why I had the emotions that I had. It didn't make sense. And over the last, I would say, 20 years, I've been going to so many different doctors trying to figure out what was wrong. And of course, in my opinion, there's no pill for being an empath. And most doctors don't really know what it is, because you can't really diagnose being an empath, because it's really hard. Like, you just have to know it, and and find out about it and talk to other people that have it, so, when you're an empath, you can get very angry very quickly. And everyone thinks that an empaths are all introverts and quiet and, sad or lonely or skittish, or like, no, it doesn't matter what the emotion is. We take it on as if it's our own. And so you can imagine if you're in a relationship with someone and you get angry, or you get sad, or you get, and of course your husband or your wife will, well, what's wrong? And because we want to fix it so you're happy again. But they're not your emotions. They're the emotions you're feeling from everyone else in the world, basically. And of course, the closer you are to those people with those emotions, the more you take those emotions on. And if you don't know what's happening, you simply won't know why you feel that way. Like, I remember when one time I went to the doctor, and I'm like, I've got anxiety because I have all these emotions and I don't know why. I shouldn't have them. And it wasn't depression or when you're happy, no one questions for you being happy, that's great. But what if you're depressed or have anxiety or, or angry or all these other emotions for no reason? You don't know why. And you're looking at your life like there's nothing wrong, but yet I'm feeling like this. So I went to my doctor with that. And they just kind of like, I don't know, like, and when I look back now, knowing I'm an empath at all those situations, I'm like, yeah, those weren't my emotions. Those were everyone else's. So if you're, like I have, family members that are really grumpy sometimes. And like, if I'm around them, well, I'm grumpier than they were. It's almost like I stole their thunder always from every emotion from everyone around me. And since as I get older, the more intense it gets. So think about, what a teenager is like, and just keep adding on to that almost. It was getting worse, not better, every year. And I wasn't knowing why, and I just thought, I felt like I'm just made to suffer with being overly emotional with everything, every emotion there is, not just one or two emotions, not just depression, not just, highs and lows. There was no rhyme or reason to it. It was whatever emotion was coming through the world is what I was taking on always. And I just thought, like I remember one time, my husband at the time, he wanted to know what was wrong. And I didn't have any answers for him. And I had to just say, just let me fight my own demons, because I don't know what's wrong. So, and you have to imagine, like, a person that is an empath needs a lot of downtime. And not downtime, like downtime to detox from everyone's emotions that you've been taking on as if they were your own. So, and I used to work for a bank, a corporate lending bank, and, it was a very stressful job. I was with people that were very stressed. No one was really happy in that job, but I was happy. I'm a happy person, but the people that I was working with weren't happy. And I would do nothing but problem solve and take on all of their emotions as if they were my own. And then I would have to sit in traffic for an hour to get home. And by the time I got home, I needed to just, like, can you imagine? I was taking on all those emotions, like myself, and I couldn't get rid of it. So a person that is an empath needs downtime. And I remember needing a lot of that, but not knowing why at the time. I just knew I needed to be alone when I got home, because otherwise I'm bringing every emotion of humanity into the house with me, and that would drive anyone insane, including your spouse, you, everyone. So yeah, the last year, so I found out about a year, I found out I was an empath. So I started to try to develop skills to deal with that. And then, it sent me down the rabbit hole of a lot of things. And this is the part where I'm going to lose a lot of you. So, and I want to talk a little bit about, I don't even know how to get started with this without I'm hesitant because not a lot of people know this, but also I call myself a second waver. Now, second waivers have to do with Dolores Cannon's work, and we'll have to dive into her a little bit. So there's a lot of YouTube videos and everything like that about light workers, star seeds, indigo children, rainbow children, all these people that are trying to expand their mind, expand their consciousness. They're trying to all do all this stuff, and there's a lot of that out there now. And I listened to it, and it sent me like searching, because I knew I wasn't quite everything that they were talking about. And so when I started studying Dolores Cannon's work, it started making a lot more sense, because I have to tell you this, like, I have something that a lot of second wavers and light workers call the knowing. And no, it's not like the movie with Nicolas Cage, but the knowing is when you know something, anything, it could be anything, but you don't know why you know it. And it's a difficult thing to convey to people, because if you tell people that you have the knowing, they think that you know everything. That's not the case. But you just know things, certain things, and you don't know why. It's not something you've studied. It's not something that someone told you. It's just you have the knowing, and it's hard to explain. And it's knowing, like, we get people that are second wavers, or a lot of light workers, indigo people, they get downloads, but this is not, the knowing is also not a download. And a lot of people get that, and I have started to get those too, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So to understand this, what I'm about to really get into, we have to talk about Dolores Cannon. So she died in, I believe, 2014, but she, for 40 years, did past life regression therapies. So, and she was really just like the pioneer, the first people that did hypnotherapy and do past life regression. And she wrote, I think, 19 books, and her series of books, her earlier work was, really the forefront of everything, but I didn't really start relating to some things and knowing what she was talking about until her later books, and she's unfortunately died, but I think, and I'm hoping more people will pick up her work. Now, when she was doing her therapies to going into people's past lives, she all of a sudden started getting individuals that didn't have a past life. So she had like 30 years of people that, she went back to, ancient Roman times, and she went back to, Atlantis, and, different parts of the world. And it didn't matter what country she would go into. The past life regressions, they would start talking about the same things, even though those people didn't know each other. So that would have been hard for people to fake. So it was very, very amazing, actually. But she started getting people that didn't have any past lives. So of course you're like, well, where did you come from? Like, how are, everyone is, where'd your soul come from? So you'll have to actually watch a lot of her videos to understand and really dive into those topics, because it's really vast. But the thing is, when I was going through her work, again, like I knew what she would start talking about it, because it's something that I always known my whole life. And I didn't know why I knew it. And I'm wondering how many, I'm calling myself a second waver, and we'll get into what that is. But if you think you're a second waver out there, hopefully you'll be able to relate a little bit to some of the things that I'm going to talk about. So I'll try to organize all this so I don't completely lose all of you in this, but hopefully it'll make sense in the end. And if you stick with me, it will make sense. So you can really go into Dolores Cannon's books and find out, all the past life regressions that she's done, because some of it is just whoa, like alien civilizations that people have past lives on other planets as an alien type thing. And that's where, like, a lot of the starseed people that are coming, awakening now, is is what they were doing. So, and a lot of people call that people like that are empaths, people that are light workers, people you call it the awakening. All of a sudden you woke up to things, you know. And you can kind of say that I did that, but I just kind of instead I kind of just got confirmed that everything that I've kind of known my whole life is actually true. Let me start with also talking about something that I've always called the collective consciousness. Some people are calling it, they call it the source. Some people like to call it the matrix. Some people like to call it a lot of different things. So, and Dolores Cannon called it the source. I called it the collective because it's really a collective of everything that ever was and ever will be type thing. You know, it's not heaven or hell or God, or it's not that. The way that I can explain it to make it sense, or to make it have sense for everybody is, imagine this. Okay, so you know how Earth has an internet. Now, you can't say where the internet is because it's kind of everywhere. You just have to tap into it. So whether it's through your phone or your laptop or where, you can actually look at a screen and type pretty much almost anything in and get some answers and get the history of so much. Like, think about what is in our internet and what histories have been logged in there and information. It's huge, right? It's almost mind-boggling huge to us right now to think about all the information collectively in our internet. But now imagine that the internet that we have is not just what we as humans have put in there. Imagine the internet being something that has recorded everything that has happened on Earth since Earth was created. So when Earth first formed a fiery ball and cooled and like different, like the dinosaurs came, everything that ever happened on Earth is in the internet, recorded in perfectly in every detail. And now imagine that every human or soul that has ever been on Earth, every thought that they've ever had, their lifetimes, has also been recorded in the internet over the billions of years that Earth has existed. Okay, so think about how vast the internet would be. So any question that you ever wanted to know, like say you don't want to just know what Stonehenge was, what if you wanted to actually tap into the internet and watch Stonehenge be built in real time and know the thoughts of everyone that was involved in it? So that's kind of what the collective is. It is an actual source of everything. Now, it's not just Earth and humanity and everything that's happened on Earth. Expand that out to the galaxy, to other galaxies, other worlds, alien civilizations, all their histories. And then we kind of have to go even deeper and start going into the multi-universes, which is very complicated to a lot of people, and I don't want to lose you with these topics, but the multi-universes is almost like simulations that have to go on to make, just almost to fit everything. And time doesn't exist in there. And this is all part of the collective as well, like the consciousness of happenings of everything, everywhere, always. And the multi-universe theories are, I like to, convey it as if you were to imagine like Earth and our galaxy, and we're to put two great big mirrors on either side of it. And if you look, it all of a sudden like doubles and goes and into infinity. And each one of those is the multi-universe. Now they're all connected, but they're all separate. They're just a little bit different type thing. And that's how like kind of the multi-universe works. Now this is something that I had always known from a small child. I knew about the infinity of everything. And that's how I looked at it. And other people now are starting, all the light workers are now talking about it. Well, I'm like, well, I knew that. But I didn't know how I knew it, and I really couldn't talk about it with anybody because it's just too far out there for people. So I kept quiet most of my life about how I understood everything. And so, yeah, It is far out there, and it's still really far out there for a lot of people, because you have to think of, the human mind can't really comprehend infinity of everything, of everything. So that's what the collective is. The everything and the multiverse of everything, in all worlds, all the time. Now, within the collective are energies, and energies of light and in source. So you can kind of say, and it's hard to find human words that can explain this, but the best way to call it is a soul, which is just an energy source that can materialize and in itself in different places at any time that energy chooses. And a lot of those energies have chosen to, be aliens and other planets, to stay in the collective since its inception, and since it was just a vibration of energy before light even, or they can go and have lifetimes on Earth. Now, as I go through this, the one thing that has to be understood are certain laws within the universe, and because when you have the multiverses that go like that, there has to be balance. And so karma is actually something very real and something that always needs to be dealt with. And that was something that I really didn't know. I didn't know how important karma was. And there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that. But yeah, I did not understand how important it was to deal with your own karma. Because if you can't get rid of all your karma on this life, you're doomed to repeat it until you can balance the multiverses out, because that's very important. It just doesn't work without that. And so our individual souls or energies have to deal with their karma. So I'm getting to the second wave or stuff. To understand what the three waves are and what the second wave is, we kind of have to go back to the time of like Atlantis. So, which is going to be very hard for a lot of people to kind of understand and get there. And if this is too much for you, just kind of click off, because it'll be too much. So the Atlanteans were a race. The Earth wasn't hugely populated the way it is now at the time of the Atlanteans, but they were very advanced. And the thing that they started doing, according to Dolores Cannon, is that they started misusing their crystal technology. They were actually starting to, like, being kids with a gun that didn't understand the repercussions of what they were doing. Because Earth, out of all the planets and all the multi-universe and everything that's out there, Earth is one of, not the only, but one of the master class. The master classes. And the reason it's a master class is because we're one of the few planets where we have short lives, and each one of our lives we have no memory of ever being part of the collective. We have no memory of our past lives, not very easily, but so yeah, we have no memory of our past lives, and we have karma always that we have to deal with on Earth until we've learned every lesson that we need to. And that's what being an Earthling is about. It's the master class. So it's a very, very difficult planet to be on because of those reasons. A short life, a very difficult life that creates a lot of karma, and we have zero memory of anything from the collective. Now, there have been anomalies of people that were able to, I believe, tap into the collective, which means access, remember, to the internet of every information that you could possibly blow your mind. And I think some people got there without dying. Like Buddha and maybe even Jesus, or Edgar Casey, I think, was able to tap into the collective, but not very deeply. But I believe he could access it. And that's where a lot of his information came from. Nostradamus could. A lot of the seers, a lot of their information came from the collective. And remember, time doesn't exist in the collective. So that's where a lot of their information came from. And it was and Dolores Cannon does have a lot of, she has a lot of books about Nostradamus I thought were very interesting. But I don't want to go too far into all of that. Let's try to stay on course to the second waivers, because that's what I really want to talk to you guys about. So, Atlantis. The Atlanteans were really in trouble. They were causing a lot of problems with their crystal technology. They were actually kind of going to create dark matter or antimatter, things that could actually rip a hole in time and space itself and cascade and ripple through the multiverses and destroy things, destroy themselves. And this was very dangerous. So, and they were also doing things like splicing and try to create their own, animals, splicing humans with other animals, doing weird, like they were just playing, but again, they didn't know what they were playing with. So the collective, inside the collective, you can call them souls or energies. Now, not all energies or souls are always come to Earth for lives or other realms or universes for lives. Some of them just stay in the collective, and a lot of them are part of kind of like a council that governs different parts of the collective itself. So when Atlantis started to getting into a lot of trouble with their technologies, the council for this universe and this part of our universe met to decide what to do, because they were really starting to do things that they couldn't allow, even though we have free will. And that's again another reason why this planet is so difficult, is because we have free will, and that's why we create so much karma, and why this life is just so hard. There is very difficult to tamper with and to change and to change the things that are going on here on Earth, because we have free will. But when Atlantis was doing this, the councils came together and they decided to destroy it, because they couldn't let them continue with what they were doing. And there wasn't huge populations. It probably wasn't too hard to destroy. They just had to sink one continent and send a tidal wave everywhere and rip through all the coastlines, and it was probably it. That's probably what happened. So, because they didn't want to lose, obviously, parts of the universe, they didn't want to lose Earth, they didn't want to lose the species of humans either. And so they just decided to destroy the civilization. And that's what they did. So we have to fast forward to today. Or I would say to fast forward to the end of World War II. At the end of World War II, there's a lot of killing going on, and most importantly, we set off a nuclear bomb. And that, again, sent a ripple through the universe that the kids found another gun. And so when that happened, the council met again to assess what was going on Earth. And they were worried that they were going to lose the master class of Earth, because they were like, well, we destroyed the civilization once, but now we got a very, very populated planet, and they're all sleeping, and they don't remember the collective, they don't know what they're doing. And of course now we've got like the particle accelerator. We're trying to create our own antimatter again. Like, it's happening again, but we're not using the crystal technology this time. We're using other technologies. And so when the council got together at the end of World War II, and they didn't want to destroy the civilizations on Earth. They probably would have had to, regress back to turn it into a fireball again. They didn't want to do that. So instead, they decided to wake us up, so we would have memory of the collective and know not to destroy ourselves. But the tricky part is, to do this, you can't just wake humanity up. You almost have to change our DNA. You have to change us. You have to change humans a little bit in order to wake them up. And it causes, because our vibrations were so low, we won't wake up. We won't just wake up. So we have to be waking up slowly and strategically. And so they developed a plan to start sending waves of energies, souls, here to help with the process. Now, the first wave were those few that were born right after World War II. Now, they also like, so there's going to be a lot of names that you hear for people. A lot of, they call them just light worker volunteers, first, second, third wave volunteers, and now we have seed children that were from other planets, that came here, and then they have some energies that were here that were just souls that were in the collective that had never been anything but the energy of light inside the collective. So they've never been in human or any form, any alien, anything. They've only ever been the energy. So they really called on those people, those souls, I guess, call them people, because first of all, they have a very high vibration already, and they also don't have any karma because they've never left the collective. So they called out for volunteers. And the first wave, they said, was the very hardest. And basically, it was the very first wave of empaths that came. So you can imagine if you came to Earth, you were born, if you survived the birth at all, you were born after World War II, and by the time you got to your, like your 20s, it's the 60s and 70s, and oh my God, is it horrible, right? Like most of them, they say committed suicide. They just couldn't handle the pain that they felt that humanity was doing to themselves. Because remember, empaths feel the emotions of all humanity, and they don't even know why. And if you don't know that that's what's happening, it can drive you insane. And yeah, a lot of them I heard committed suicide. And but they volunteered for that, and that was their job. Someone had to be first. And now we have the second and third wave. Now I've already said that I'm a second waver. So, and there's a few reasons how I guess I can say I've always known that, but some of the reasons are not just being an empath and discovering I'm an empath, but when I look at my childhood, it all makes kind of sense. So one of the things that they say about second waivers is that we're not really here to change humanity. It's almost like the light workers and the indigo children or the rainbow children. That's what they're doing. They're waking people up, and they're part of it. They have a huge vibration and stuff like that. The second waivers simply are here to just be here and hold a high vibration so the people around us can wake up more easily. And that's pretty much our only job. So if you think about second waivers, they came from the collective, and they had never been a soul. They haven't never been a soul that left the collective ever. So we have no past lives. We have no anything, and we don't have memory of the collective, even though we can feel it. And we, I guess, volunteered to be here for just this one life for as long as possible, and we want to get back to the collective. We chose never to be materialized in a body or anything. We wanted to stay energy in the collective and light in the collective, and that's it. But we volunteered, and of course none of us remember volunteering because as soon as you come to Earth you have no memory, but you have, again, there's the knowing, which is again very hard to explain. So some of the things they say about the second waivers is we don't have children, and that was something about me. I knew not to have children always. I remember being like 5 years old and going, no, I'm not having children. No, not having kids, not having children. And then, and of course, people always brushed it off. Like, I knew not to have children because children kind of bounds you to Earth or causes you to have karma, and you might get stuck here for a while to sort, And so second waivers have almost instinctively the knowing not to have children. And my whole life, everyone said I would change my mind, and I couldn't explain to him or to anybody why I knew not to have kids. And people still look at me like, oh, I could still have kids, and I'm like, no. If you understood why we don't have kids, you would not say that. But it's an extremely hard thing to explain to anybody about why you have a knowing not to have children. Especially today, it seems like a lot of people expect all women to have kids, but to make a choice not to. it's a hard thing to explain. And people still say, "Oh, I can change my mind." And the second thing that's really sorry, my hair. I play with my hair a lot. You'll just have to deal with it. Second thing that is very common with second waivers is that we look young for our age. I even read one place that they say the second waivers will live to 150. I'm like, wow, cool. And the thing is, I have always been into longevity. I from very young knew I needed and wanted to live a very long time. I wanted to live a healthy life and live a long time. Like I always felt like I needed to bear witness to everything and to humanity, and I wanted to see everything, and I didn't. It's almost as if I instinctively knew that this would be it, that this would be my only life here, and I need to see and travel and do as much as I could and experience as much as I could, because as soon as I'm done here, heading back to the collective and never being a material form again, like where does that come from? So I always practice longevity. I named my garden longevity. I named business longevity. That was just part of me, and as I get older, I'm starting to notice that I'm not aging the way everyone else that is my age looks. I don't know how to, I don't want to sound, but okay, so I'm 43, and I see other people that are 43, and they look older. As I get older, the more noticeable that is. And so we'll see in 10 years what I look like in 10 years. See, so that's another thing about second waivers. We know that this is our only life here or anywhere by choice, and we simply volunteered to come here because we have no karma from past lives. We have a very high vibration, and we're basically the second wave of empaths that feel all the emotions of humanity, good or bad. It's basically what a second waiver is. And our job is just to be here, for everyone, we're pocketed all over just for people to feel our vibration. And we feel theirs. I mean, yeah, it doesn't matter who we're with or where we are, we feel everything. And we have a knowing. So I'll give you guys a couple examples of each of those. So the empath feeling that we feel of everything, I'm always very good if I'm walking around or traveling and by myself, because I can almost instinctively know which streets to go down and where to go, because I can feel I just use my intuition the entire time, and I'm always fine. But as soon as I'm with someone else and I'm having to go places and ride their wake or try to keep up with them or slow down so they can keep up with me, or that's when I start to get into some trouble. And last month I was in Manhattan, and a couple things happened, and one of them was I was with my girlfriend, and we were at this one place. We took an Uber there, and we were going to change locations, so I got my phone to get an Uber to the second location, and as soon as we started walking, my phone was leading me in the exact opposite direction of where I needed to go, and I instantly got frustrated. and I couldn't figure out. I'm I figured just my phone was broken, so I had to hand my phone to my girlfriend, and she started walking. She goes, "Oh, I know what street it is. Something's wrong with the app." And so she started walking this direction, and I'm following her, and instantly I started getting overwhelmed with almost anger and frustration and just an unreasonable emotion that I couldn't be explained. And we ended up on this park where we had to find the Uber, and I was overwhelmed, and I couldn't control it. And we found the Uber, and we had to quickly get into it. And as soon as we got into it, I heard yelling going on in the park that was next to us. We started driving away, but as soon as we got about a mile away, it just completely subsided. It was gone. And my girlfriend's looking at me going, "What is going on?" And I said to her, I'm like, "Ugh, do you know what an empath is?" And I explained to her, I'm like, I knew I was walking in the opposite direction, and I think I was affecting my phone, like my electronics, for the first time, to just not go down that particular street because there was bad energy there, and I didn't want to go near it. I just felt it, and the closer I got to it, the worse I got, and the further away I got it, the better it got. And it could have been like a drug deal going wrong or something, who knows. But I knew something was there, and then I heard yelling, but we quickly got into the Uber and got away. So things like that will happen to empaths. We just feel humanity. And since I really started getting downloads from the collective and started tapping into a lot of things, it starts going really fast. Like your awakening process starts happening really, really fast. And now people are starting to, like, I almost have to be a hermit and stay in my house or in my yard a lot right now, because as soon as I go out, I can feel everything, and I think people can feel me. So I was in like the bookstore looking at some books, and I had all these different people coming up to me wanting to help me, and none of them worked there. I'm like, I'm fine. And then one of them asked, he wasn't hitting on me, but he wanted to take me out for coffee, and I'm like, no, sorry, I have to go. Like, and I just like had to get out of there. And like, so things like that are starting to always happen to me. And I think people that are with me can sometimes for the first time feel a vibration that I'm giving off, because I'm moving very quickly now. So, and examples of the knowing, things for no reason, and usually it's really stupid things. Let me see. Growing up in school, I just knew most of the things they were teaching you were wrong. Especially, I went to a Catholic school when I was really young, and I remember just listening to some of the things that they were saying. I'm like, you're making this up. Who believes this story? And it was just stupid. And they were talking about it like it's real. I'm like, no, it's not. So I really had to be almost atheist my whole life, just because most of the stuff was made up, and I just knew a lot of it was in most religions. So, and it happens with other things, like things that I can't do anything about them, but I know it. I was at the National History Museum in Manhattan this last trip, and on the top floor is where all the dinosaur bones are, and they have they have the Earth progression where all the continents are together, and then they all started spreading out, and they had the progression like globes going like this, and I stood in front of that, and I just like, this is all wrong. I knew it was wrong. I can't believe this. They've accepted this, and it's not like I went to school for this stuff or anything. I just know it. I'm like, you can't have all the land on one side and just water on the other side, and Earth is spinning, it'll spin itself out, and the ocean waves will get collapsed. It just doesn't work. The math's wrong, even though I don't know the math. I just knew that the model of all the land being on just one side of the Earth and then spreading out was wrong, because the Earth couldn't spin. It's not balanced enough to spin perfectly. All the land mass and water on the Earth is in a perfect balance, and it's spinning. If you clumped it all on one side, it wouldn't be able to, it would spin itself out, so it doesn't work. And I'm looking at the model going, it's wrong. And I'm telling my girlfriend that, and she's looking at me like I'm crazy, because like, you're going to argue with what's at the National History Museum? I'm like, well, yeah, because it's wrong. And then, and it kind of, things like that will happen in my head. But then we have the internet, so I went on the internet and I looked at other theories, and yeah, there's the expanding Earth theory where, all the land was touching and like a puzzle, but the Earth was smaller and the Earth expanded because things are entering it. Cosmic rays, meteorites, droplets of water from the space, and everything in the core is expanding, and you can see in the Atlantic Ocean there's a rip tide almost that's splitting the Earth, and the Earth is just growing, and that's how it all stayed balanced. So the land mass was touching, but the Earth got bigger as it was spinning, and it was just stupid things like that is part of the knowing, and it could be incredibly complex things. and it doesn't do me any good. It doesn't do anybody any good. Like I'm not gonna be doing anything with this stuff. It's just part of the knowing, and I think it's part of being like an empath a little bit as well. When you're talking to people and they tell you things that aren't right, you just know. It's like, I don't know what you're lying. You know, you start telling stories. They start telling stories. It's like, you're making this up, but you can't accuse people of that. But that happens a lot, and it's starting to happen. Like to me anyway, a lot more. I'm using my intuition a lot more now, and I'm waking up to other things. You know, like I can understand complex things like in the universe that I shouldn't know or understand. And so I can't really talk to most people about it because, well, most people are like really asleep to how, you know, the government works or the planet works. They're not going to be awake to how the universe works. So there's not a lot of people I can talk to about this. So. But I think that is changing because we now have the third wave of people coming in. And these kids that are being born today are amazing. You know, the term Lightworker is getting used a lot. So if you go on like YouTube and you look up Lightworker, and there's a lot of spiritual people out there, and there are a lot, you know, and they help people expand their consciousness, tap into the collective, you know, try to get downloads, like, you know, try to be enlightened. So people that are, you know, aware that they're aware, people that are psychic, people are like, you know, it's a gradual scale when you go through all the indigos and light workers to enlightenment, people that can go into the collective whenever they want without having to die. Like I think, you know, like I think some of those Buddhist monks are able to do that, and they're enlightened. So, and more people that are being born now, they're starting to have access to the collective just like that, very easily. And I've seen like examples of some of these young children like in India that they can give incredibly hard math problems to, and they'll be able to solve them having never taken a math class. You know, they're just these kids that are incredibly intuitive and enlightened and tapped into the collective. So those are really amazing examples. So, and that is not, I don't, you know, I know I'm a second waver. You know, I'm here to have a high vibration. I'm here as an empath, and I'm here for this one very long life. So, you know, if I'm 43 now and they say that we'll live to almost, you know, 150, I'm only a third of the way through my life then, right? I've got a long way to go. Yeah, and I'm, you know, people sometimes feel sorry for me that I don't have kids, and I'm like, you don't know where I come from and where I'm going to after this. I'm going back to the collective, which is essentially the way it's being described is just energy of love, and that's it. Even though it's got all the information, but it's the feeling of just love is what they say the collective, being inside the collective is. So, I know I really went off on a lot of topics. I hope I didn't freak anybody out. If you stayed with me this far, hopefully you're either a second waver like me, or a lot of you are light workers in some form. You know, you don't want to get too hung up on a lot of the names for, you know, the groups of people that are coming in now, because they all have high vibrations and a lot of them don't know why they are the way they are, which is hard to explain. But yeah, I'm not here to try to wake other people up or to help people find their path or all that stuff. There's a lot of other people like that. I'm just here to, I think I'm just here to be a witness, and I'm starting to play with things a little bit, because I know my vibration is higher now than it's ever been, and the people that I come into contact with, they're starting to say things to me that are, they're acting differently around me. Like, they say that they can feel my vibration. I'm like, really? What's it feel like? They said, I don't know, but it feels good. I'm like, well, that's good. You know, just don't put me in a crowd of angry people, a mob. I'll freak out. So, being an empath, you're just, most of my life I was just tortured by my feelings and emotions, and I thought I just had these invisible demons that I had to fight all the time because I didn't know why I was feeling the way I was. And so it's a little bit comforting to know that it was just humanity itself I was feeling, or the people I was with, or family, or it was always from usually outer sources. It wasn't me. So that gives me a little bit of solace. So I'm sorry this talk went on so long. We had to dive into a lot of intense topics. And well, I'm glad if you're a second waver. I put out this video because when I was looking for more information or videos on second waivers, there really wasn't a lot. There's a lot of the third wave, all the indigos and starseeds and lightworkers, but the second waivers are in our 40s. We're all in our 40s or so, so we don't tend to go on YouTube and make videos that much. So I figured I would put this one in just so people have a little bit of reference to it. I've been thinking about doing this video for a long time, and I'm finally doing it because I think it's more important for me to put this video online to help kind of give others some insight on being a second waver than it is to have people that know me personally and not want to know that about me, if that makes sense. So anyway, thanks for watching, you guys. Welcome to I don't know, my bedroom. This is where I'm doing the video today. So I'll see you next time.